I think I'm in quite an unusual situation because I've been a teacher, a school leader. I worked for a government minister for a couple of years. I've run my own business for many years, and now I work for Microsoft. And I'm fortunate to be able to travel all over the world with Microsoft and work with school leaders on development programs in lots of different places, both in the developed world, in emerging economies, and in places in the middle of Africa. I'm off to Rwanda in a couple of weeks. So I think what I'm going to share with you today is a little bit of my experience about what leadership is. And we've spoken a lot about exam results and league tables and measurement. What I want to perhaps focus on is skills, much more skills for employability, because you're all business leaders, you're in the room, and as everybody's saying here, you have a vital part to play in education improvement. And it won't happen without the involvement of business leaders, working with school leaders, and maybe focusing a little bit about what our learners actually need. Because the world is changing, and many of our school leaders were educated in the old paradigm, and the world changes a lot. And society generally is a bit ahead of change in education. And if we look at this slide, what we see here are a few people reporting the news, telling the passively listening world what's happening. We're seeing consumption. But if we move forward a few years, what we're seeing here is completely different. We're seeing everybody reporting the news, creating content, sharing it. This has fundamentally changed the world of learning, how students connect, how they seek out new ideas, how they think not locally but globally. And therefore, the context of our discussion really has to be, how do we lead education in an ever-changing landscape? Our learners have a lot of challenges to face. If we consider how the world is changing, how do we educate our children to be able to cope with these challenges? And how can we expect school leaders, schooled in the methods of the past, to cope with managing an education system which is perhaps in danger in many places of becoming unfit for purpose? Unless it equips kids with the skills they need, not only to survive, but to become the problem solvers of tomorrow, to find solutions to global challenges. These are huge challenges, and they will be the people who have to solve them. The way schools have to lead, the business of education, if you like, is changing. We have a global workforce that's connected. The economy is global, but only a few educators are actually connecting with each other to bring world experience into their classroom practice. And if we can lead this better, spreading it out, we're going to have a much more tolerant children who are more aware of the dynamics of religion, of politics, of economic reality. They'll be problem seekers, finding solutions to worldwide challenges. And learners want an education system that's fit for purpose. They want one that's relevant to their daily lives, and they're asking these kinds of questions. Are we providing the answers? Are our school leaders equipped to be able to answer these types of questions about education? You know, technology is not the star of the shift. It's about encouraging development of the skills that create the foundation for learners to change the world. And technology can support that. If we look at some of the things that are happening, the children in this slide, they're not just playing in the mud. They're actually doing research for a game they're programming. The character goes through the mud, and they are taking sound effects here. And we're seeing so much more of this type of learning taking place around our country and around the world. You know, we're seeing flipped classrooms becoming a trend, where putting children at the center of the learning dynamic is becoming a reality. And it's enabled by a huge breadth of content that's available outside of the classroom. These are some of the situations we see in the world of work. And we need to perhaps think about, are schools changing the way that they teach and the things that they teach, the skills development, to match all of these types of situations that you will be familiar with? At Microsoft, our products are not made by one person sitting in a room on a computer. They're made by huge global teams working together, feedback coming from hundreds of people around the world, research, large teams creating new markets, not just trying to develop older ones. It's about support for life skills. The contrasting dynamics of these. Learning's changed, the workforce has changed, the expectations of a global economy have shifted. So how can we accelerate this in our classrooms? What are we doing to support a skills development agenda? And what are we doing to support school leaders in making education more fit for purpose for the 21st century world of work into which our learners are going? We talk a lot about the 4 C's in education. We saw them on the slide before, but I'd like to add computational thinking to that list. And this isn't so much about learning coding or computing science. It's actually learning how to think, how to develop a breadth of thinking skills that travel from subject to subject. At Microsoft, we're developing technology that works, hopefully. We are developing platforms like Minecraft that many of you, or many of your children perhaps, will play, but these are crucial in developing these computational transferable skills across subject to subject. And our school leaders are faced with these challenges of how they integrate this type of learning and teaching into the curriculum. The old questions are probably going now. It's not so much more about is it consuming content or creating it. When we live in a world where we have never, ever in the history of mankind been bombarded with so much information 24/7. And really, the challenge we have in education now is looking at this and critically consuming it, sharing it, changing it, critiquing it. These are the skills we use in our everyday work. And are these skills ones that are being developed in schools, and are our school leaders equipped to be able to push forward on this agenda? The maker movement is pretty big now. Those of us who are teachers know all about the value of play in education. Are we giving children the chance to do things rather than just to passively absorb? Another challenge for school leaders, to get this into the classroom. And of course that translates to computing science. If we can get kids learning, using the theory they've learned to make things, then these are great skills, but it's a challenge. So how do we equip our school leaders to deal with this? Because we need to. We've heard the economic imperative about better education that's more engaging, relevant to learners, and how that boosts engagement in the classroom. And that will boost results, and that will push up GDP. 60% of our annual GDP increase is generated by learners with a tertiary level income in tertiary level education. But if only half of them are making it through to matric, and then a third are making it into that tertiary level education, we've got a challenge. So what can we do? At Microsoft, we have a couple of programs that we're working with business leaders in partnership to try and help push this agenda forward by developing capacity for leadership in schools. One of them is our Leading Countries program that South Africa is a member of. Minister Mocheka accepted the invitation when she was in Dubai at Microsoft a few months ago, and it's a forum for government to share good practice about what works in education around the world. One of the programs I work on is the Microsoft Education Transformation Framework. 10 critical components for school transformation. One of the most critical is partnerships. Partnerships with business to bring skills into schools. Skills that will help school leaders manage the change and equip our learners to take their place as part of a 21st century workforce. It's built on lessons, what works. We don't always need to change or reinvent the wheel, do we? What works in good schools? How do they achieve great results? Taking these lessons and distilling them into a framework that helps our school leaders to learn from those who really are making a difference here at home and elsewhere in the world. You know, transformation is happening now, isn't it? We are in the midst of all of this transformation. And it's imperative, I think, on partnerships to drive forward improvement in education. And this is why I'm so passionate about the involvement of business with schools, because the skills mix that are brought in and created from that involvement are priceless. We're quite proud of our mission statement at Microsoft, empowering every student to achieve more. The name of the school you see on there is one in the Eastern Cape where we've worked to develop school leadership. Thank you. And that's involved a partnership with local business, as well as Microsoft and other multinationals, and the school leader to build capacity. It's due to the work that people like you do, and for those of you in the room who are not yet involved, these are the lives you'll change by becoming involved. Thank you very much.